All right, everybody, we're out here today on location, actually, outside of Memphis, Tennessee, with the Shelby garage. And here today, we're going to go ahead and be doing some suspension work on Shelby Lancer number 628. So that's going to be kind of exciting. We'll try and cover that as we go. Have a few more things for you. And I'm pretty excited about being on location for the first time. Lots of sweeping going on right now, so already getting pretty hectic in here. So check it out. About a half hour outside of beautiful Memphis, we have the Trotter Estate, which is approximately 2,200 acres of rolling hills. 2,200 acres on the outside for the buffalo to roam and graze. Inside you can see a killer L-body collection. A little bit dirtier than John normally keeps it, but nonetheless there's GLHS 937 in pristine condition. And Shelby Lancer 628, ready to get a new suspension put on it with clean hands. Let's go ahead and get started. Real quickly, if you guys look, you can see this is actually, in the olden days, what they would do is they would use a socket on some sort of a lever like this to loosen the lug nuts before you raise up the car, which is, that's pretty wild. But that's one of the things. When you come to Memphis, you get a lot of the old world charm that is so common in the region. Alright, gonna be one of the first steps to do here is to set it up to where we can pull the axles out and drop everything down. If you haven't seen it yet, go ahead and check out my video on how to change an axle, and that'll get you started. I'll try and put a link up on the screen here, and then you can go there before coming back. It's going really well here. We've got everything ready to come out on the front. I mean, we've got all the, we got crazy focus, that's what we got. But strut is disconnected down there, got all the ball joint pinch bolts out, and then the tie rod end is all set to go. Up here on the top, to get these out from the top, you can see there's just 3 bolts up here, really nuts that attach there. Now that we've got all this stuff undone, it's really gonna be a situation where we go under the car, and the K-frame is held in place with 2 bolts and 2 nuts, I think. Total of 4 fasteners in there, no big deal. Rather large. If your car is rusty, God help you, but this baby's out of California, which is the only way to do it. So I think they're actually gonna fall off because I'm gonna give them a dirty look. And then we'll go ahead and drop everything down, and we'll look at the stuff that's gonna go back in. Doesn't work. All right. Well, here is the old unit, obviously, on the left, and old unit on the left, new unit on the right. And you can get a quick tape measure action going there. Not only is the new knuckle powder coated along with the caliper and looking all shiny, it's got the bolt-in hubs, as you can see on the right. That's, in my mind, a pretty big advantage. A lot easier to change out than having to pull the knuckle and use a press or use any of the number of tools that they've got that kind of do that in the car for you. Much less of a pain, in my opinion. And again, you got about, actually it's about a 10-inch disc on there. Yeah. On the left, so about 10-inch discs actually that came on this thing stock. And on the right, I know it's almost 11¼ inches for the big brake. So this is gonna be a huge brake upgrade. I mean, you can also look at the piston bore. Well, I mean, obviously you can't fully see it there, but you can see just the outline of the bore for the pistons on the rotors here. And as John runs the tape, I mean, just a huge difference in piston size. I believe the 11-inch brakes on the right are a 60mm piston, and that's just going to equate to a heck of a lot more braking than what we had previously. That's one of the things that the Chryslers, starting in '89, which is the style of brakes that are on here, they had a colossal size brakes. 11-inch, not too far out of line in the front, but they also had 11-inch vented discs in the rear. So when you're talking 11¼ inch vented discs in the front and the rear in the late 80s, those were some serious brakes to be on cars, and frankly, I'm not really aware of any car to have that large of a vented disc in the rear for a front-wheel drive, kind of little performance econo box type application even since. The Neon SRT4s had solid rotors. So many of the other cars just have not come with anything like that. So we do have the caliper bolts that need to go in still. And you can see here that there is only a single caliper on the left with those K&H calipers or whatever of that style versus the 2 caliper pins that go in the one on the right. And what's interesting about the 89 and 90 big brakes on this car is that the caliper bracket is actually molded into the knuckle. So that's the easy way to tell the 89 and 90 big brakes versus the later 91 and up brakes, because those had an actual caliper bracket that bolted to the knuckle, and then the caliper bolted obviously to the caliper bracket. So pretty cool. We're going to get these things thrown in a bit. We're going to have a comparison between the struts. Alright, well on the left here we've got how the new BC coilovers come stock, I guess if you will, out of the box. You can see how much shorter it is than the stock stuff in the middle there. On the right, John's already gone ahead and kind of unthreaded, if you will, if that's even a word, the sleeves to get it down to where it's going to be close to the original height of the original strut there. So this is going to be pretty great. Obviously we're going to want probably an inch or two drop on this thing, give it a real nice stance, it'll sit really well. You got the adjustable camber plates there, and that's really nice, adjustable for both camber and caster really. And then of course we'll show you in a little bit there, but on the top of the strut you got a knob, super easy to turn and adjust, and you can go ahead and just give it a quick turn and you are now adjusting your struts. One way is soft, the other way is hard, and it's really nice. I've got a set of these on my Daytona and I really love them. Some of the advancements that Rich has made in this thing since originally doing them, with the fact that now you don't need a spacer for the knuckle, and the fact that honestly you get the full height available out of them now as the stock ones. That's just a huge difference. Before they were the stock SRT4 style, and so you needed a spacer for the knuckle, and really frankly they were just too short. So they've come a long way since I got my set, and we're going to be happy to have these on the car, which will be in no time. Alright, here we are taking the K-frame down with the A-arm still attached, nothing else really in there at this point. Pretty simple. Again, we got 2 bolts and 2 nuts, drops right down, makes a loud clanging noise, and that's pretty much the end of it. We're going to have another K-frame ready to go in. This is the old one that's the stub strut K-frame coming out. Going to have the dual pivot control arm K-frame coming back in, which will be a huge upgrade, again suspension wise. So the whole 9 yards here is going to be done today, and easy as pie when you got a nice California car like this one, which is how it should be. We'll check back in a bit when we get this thing out and the new one up. Alright, we got the new K-frame ready to go in. It's in the front, and you can see it's the dual pivot design with the front and rear actual pivot portions. The K-frame in the back is kind of a weird situation in my mind, at least. The back anchor point there on that control arm is just a little stub strut, they call it, and it's, I don't know, almost think of it as like how the neons and things have got that that horizontal bushing, if you will, and there she blows, and that goes in there, and it's just not ideal. I always wonder, I know those neons handle really well, but I always wonder if like the guy who designed this, somehow like his last thing going out, he's like, I'm gonna try and redo it for the neons. It's gonna be better this time. But either way, we got this thing ready to go, nice and clean, all powder coated everything, set to go in, polyurethane bushings, big sway bar. Not sure if you can see there, but it is a huge difference between the stock one that was in the Lancer and this behemoth sway bar that's getting ready to go in there now. So all set to go, ready to be buttoned up, and get that in there, get the rack bolted to it, and we're going to be ready to attach the rest of our suspension, and we'll be happy campers here. Alright, as you can see, we've got the new K-frame ready to go in the car. It's a situation where you just put it on the jack and raise it right up there. The 2 bolts that are sticking down from the frame really help to guide it up there. There's not much centering that needs to do, generally speaking, so long as the cars have been tweaked in an accident or something. One aspect of this installation here that we haven't really covered is the fact that you do have to disconnect the rack. There are 4 bolts on the rack that need to be disconnected. There is a bolt hole size, I think it's like M6 probably, or maybe M8 on the old ones, and then the new ones have got 1 step larger. So you will have to drill out, I think we only had to drill out 2 holes in the rack for this. We did suspend the rack with a couple of coat hangers, which was kind of nice. Likewise, we did suspend the driver's side axle with a coat hanger also, so that the trans fluid wouldn't leak all over the floor. Not really a super huge deal, but nonetheless, the rack's ready to go back up and in. 2 nuts on the bolts that are already there, and 2 bolts themselves, and you're good to go. Next, it's going to be time to go ahead and mark the camber plates. These plates did not come with any sort of markings on them. Myself and John wanted to make sure that we could have both plates accurately centered for the camber adjustment. And so we decided to go ahead and take a paint pen and make the world's hardest to see marks on these. We went ahead and marked the extreme travel on one side, and then on the other, we then went ahead and made a dot right in the middle, as you can see here, sort of. Again, it is the world's hardest to see mark, but nonetheless, we went ahead and did that. Doing so is going to allow us to be able to get a better gauge of where our adjustment's at for the camber when we go ahead and set it. For this car, it's most likely going to be straight up on the plate, and the adjustment will be made at the knuckle. But nonetheless, if he ever does want to drop these down and make a further adjustment, he can go ahead and do so here, and it'll give him a great idea of where he stands. Having prepared the struts for installation and bolting the rack and K-frame back in the car, we're now ready to go ahead and put the knuckles on. We've got the bearing already bolted on the knuckle. We've got that pressed onto the, not really pressed of course, but the axle slid through the bearing, and now we're going to go ahead and tighten up the pinch bolts. Remember to get these babies nice and tight so you can have a big smile and shake your head up and down while you're driving down the road, versus having that control arm come out of the knuckle and your wheel turning all sideways and funny. Not a good time. We'll finish bolting this up, and then we'll be ready to throw in some more stuff. One of the few modifications necessary for this kit was to go ahead and trim the bushings at the top of the rear shocks. A lot of fun with the hacksaw, as you can see. We went ahead and chose the hacksaw because that way the heat wouldn't get into the shock. We didn't want to ruin either the bushing that actual metal sleeve rides in, nor did we want to go ahead and get any heat into the shock for multiple reasons that obviously should occur to anyone. Lots of hacksawing later, we had a pretty darn perfect piece. I think we did an excellent job of measuring and cutting the bushings. Really no problems there at all. What happened was we were really able to duplicate what the factory had as far as the width, and that really made a huge difference in getting it right into the car to bolt in. You'll see in the next bit here, we're going to have some sleeves that we needed to pound into the bottom of the rear shocks, and once that was done, we were good to go and install those. With the tops all trimmed up for the shocks, we needed to go ahead and install the little bushings. The stock bolts that are used on the rear trailing arm are just a little bit smaller than the ones that were meant for the bottom of this particular shock. So you got to go ahead and install these little sleeves, and then your bolt will slide right through and be good to go. With the shock all trimmed up at the top and swaying in the breeze, we needed to go ahead and remove the top spring mount in the rear end there. Again, this was very easy due to the fact that this car came out of California and has no corrosion on it whatsoever. We needed to go ahead and remove that bump stop there by taking off a 15mm nut from the inside. Once we did that, it gave us the clearance we needed to go ahead and mount the spring perches on the bottom. For this, we went ahead with a drill, started off small, and worked our way up to a 1/2 inch so that we could go ahead and attach the new, really sleeves, if you will, and perches for the springs. Once we get that on there, it's going to be great. The spring will slide right in, and we'll have some height adjustment due to those perches on the springs. So that'll be nice. Alrighty. Got the adjustable shocks in there with the adjustable spring perch and springs. Now the rear is fully adjustable for ride height. If we look way up there, you can see the knob for adjusting the firmness of the shock. So pretty great, really nice, happy to have it. Not too bad of a project for the rear at all. Fairly straightforward, a little bit of modification necessary, but overall not too bad, something we can definitely live with. So wheels are going to go on, and we got to adjust the ride height next, which is just involves messing around with that spring perch till you get the desired ride height. Same thing for the fronts, so good times to be had shortly. All right, here we have the front struts all in the car and ready to go. Just make sure you loosen the bottom lock ring there and adjust it with the top ones. A lot of people mistakenly try and adjust these in the spring, but that's not how it works. The body threads down into the shaft that attaches to the knuckles, so really quite simple. If you go ahead and look at it here, you can see that on the top it's very extraordinarily simple. All you do is turn that knob soft or hard. Now it's time to go ahead and drop the car down, getting it off the jack stands. I was kind of surprised. I thought the car would be a little bit lower, but nothing too crazy. As you see here at the very end, it looks like it sits about the same as it did before. But what you got to keep in mind is that this is actually a new and very stiff, tight suspension that's on the car now, versus before what you had was some old worn out Monroe Formula GPs with 70-some odd thousand miles on them that were originally on the car in actually 1987. So I'm sure the performance is going to be much different. Myself and John both took the car for a ride after we finished installing these struts and shocks and springs, and in so doing we went for one ride with him on soft, and it was exactly what you would want out of a car like this. The old Shelby Lancers were designed exactly for the purpose of competing with the BMWs of the day, and riding in it with this suspension on it, you can feel how that would have been exactly the case. Nice and soft and smooth while it's on full soft, still firm, confidence inspiring, great ride. Definitely performance oriented, but something that you would expect out of a real luxury car. We flipped the switch to full hard, went out for another ride, and it was jarring and relatively harsh. Exactly what you'd expect from an adjustable suspension that allows you to have not necessarily the best of both worlds, as there are some compromises involved here, but it is exactly what you want. You want the ability to be able to cruise around and have it be firm, performance oriented, but not something that's going to shake you out of your seat and cause your wife to never ride in it. You want to be able to turn the dials on all four corners, and you want to be able to go out to the autocross or the road course or whatever and have a competitive day. That's exactly what these are going to go ahead and give you with minimal modifications, very, very minimal modifications. So having done that, we can go ahead and wrap it up, another project in the books and another Shelby Lancer with a new suspension on the road. Huge thanks to John Trotter for having us out. Really had a great time in Memphis, and also a huge thanks to my wife for making us waffles every morning, because there's no better way to start your day than with some nice chocolate chip and cinnamon waffles. Might not make you look any thinner, but it'll keep you happy. Catch you guys next time.